Good afternoon. My name is Pasha Baker, and we are back with another series visiting one of our favorite people and our favorite partners here in Winter Park, Hannibal Square, at the Hannibal Square Heritage Center. We are with the director of Hannibal Square, Miss Barbara Chandler. Once again, I'm Pasha Baker over at the Goldsboro Museums, and we're here with our longtime friend came over to Sanford many times.
Several times.
Yeah.
Richard Hall,
Mr.
Tuskegee Airman Chief Master Sergeant.
Tell us about him.
Chief Master Sergeant Richard Hall, he has departed from us.
A few weeks ago,
January the 25th. He was born September the 25th. Can't remember the exact year right now. 1942 or 43. And he transitioned January the 25th of 2021. Chief Master Sergeant, raised in Hannibal Square, was born in Georgia, moved here when he was about 2 or 3 years old, a resident of the area, went to Hungerford. From Hungerford, he went to Xavier. From Xavier, he went to Tuskegee and came back to the community, lived in Maitland, attended Mount Moriah, which is one of the oldest African-American churches in the area. And so he would attend the festivals. He went to Bronze Kingdom with us. So he was definitely a very active member. This sculpture, life-size sculpture, was done by local artists in Kissimmee, Rigoberto Torres. So we're so grateful to have it here as a proud reminder of who he was to us as a resident and our local hero.
And that's what most people don't know about Winter Park. Winter Park was predominantly black up until a few decades ago. Just the 80s. Yeah, so I still remember Winter Park as being predominantly a black-owned community, a thriving black-owned community.
That is correct.
Thriving black-owned community up until a few decades ago, and up until really the crack epidemic. Is when we saw the decline in Winter Park, as well as the decline in home ownership. But now Winter Park's black community, thanks to you and other activists and we don't call you community leaders, we call you community gatekeepers. Nobody gets through here unless you talk to her.
Yeah, so it has changed, and I have been living here now in Winter Park, working in the city of Winter Park for the Hannibal Square Heritage Center at least for 10 years now. And so there is the history that I learned in moving in, and there is the history that I have actually witnessed myself.
Yeah.
And to see the decline, the removal of African Americans, it's not pleasing. And the way that it's happening. It's the way that it's happening. People are being taken advantage of. We always like to say that gentrification is a global issue, and it's happening in our local communities. And how do we manage it? What programs are in place? Before people start to get foreclosures, what are the tactics? What are the tactics that are being used?
And the preying on people.
And the preying. That's the big part of it. That's a big part of why a lot of homeowners are not here right now. There was not an advocate in place for them.
That's true.
There's not an advocate. Just like everyone has an agent, sports people have an agent speaking for them. Who was the advocate in place when this was really underway?
Yeah. And so the landscape of Winter Park has changed. So that is the reason why there is Hannibal Square at Heritage Center. Because so much of their history was torn apart and was taken from them, like Miss Barbara was saying. So now we go into here, and this is that piece of history that we have to cherish and that we have to spread the word on so it doesn't continue to happen. But we also must rebuild Winter Park.
That's exactly right.
And rebuild Winter Park with all of the voices from the community. Not just some.
But all.
But all of the voices of the community. And what's the most important thing about Mr. Hall is, one, he was a Tuskegee Airman, as of course you see here. But that's one of the biggest things, because back then, blacks were not believed to be as smart as whites, so of course they would not fly planes in the military.
That's correct.
They did not have guns in the military. They were just thought of as the cooks and the orderlies or the housekeepers and those type of things. So to fly a plane during that time, but also to enjoy the freedoms that we have today because of him flying that airplane.
That's right. The opportunities.
That's
the
right.
Opportunities that his, the opportunities that what he, and along with the other, they call them DOTAs, documented original Tuskegee Airmen, what they had to go through, the privileges now that some of us are able to apply ourselves to. It's because of someone like a Mr. Hall.
That's
so
right.
We're honored. We're extremely honored.
Yeah. God bless him.
Yeah.
Now you want to take us inside, Ms.
Absolutely. We are going inside the Heritage Center, and we are going to tour that.
Tell us a little bit more about the history of Winter Park. Not just Hannibal Square, but of Winter Park.
Winter Park. So a lot of times when you hear Winter Park, you hear the name Winter Park, you don't realize that there has always been an African American community.
Yeah, and one of the first black newspapers right after enslavement.
That's right.
Was
That's right.
here.
That is
in the country.
In the country, and it was the Advocate. And that was by Gus Henderson, who was out of Lake County, and he was a traveling salesman at the time. And he somehow his job, he exceeded his expectations, as a lot of African Americans do, and they no longer wanted him. He was one of the top salesmen, and he traveled, he got removed or fired, whatever the terminology was at the time, and he moved to Hannibal Square and saw the disparity within government. He started the Advocate. It was a newspaper, and from that, he was very instrumental in making sure that the two African Americans, Walter B. Simpson and Frank Israel, that they were elected into office. And we're talking about the late 1800s. And since then, there has been no one to sit on the city commission.
So, let me get this correct. Since the late 1800s, a little bit after enslavement ended, with the Emancipation Proclamation, Mr. Henderson sought to make sure that blacks had a voice.
That's correct.
And used the media for that voice.
That is correct.
And created that black newspaper that, had the black experience.
That's correct.
In it. That's and correct. Things that matter to black families.
That is correct.
Because of course back then, even though it was the Reconstruction period around this time, I believe, not quite Jim Crow laws, but still we were separate but equal.
That is correct. And so if you, and I'm sure that Shay will get some more footage of outside. So Winter Park was divided into the east side and the west side. The west side, the developers Chase and Chapman, they actually platted this area with the letter N, meaning Negro. This is where the Negroes would live. So they were landowners. They were business owners.
That's right. Up until a few years ago.
That is correct.
Up until the 80s, like we said. Majority of the blacks in Winter Park own their own home.
That's right. Homeowners. They own several plots of land. I always emphasize this to say they own the brick and mortar. A lot of these posh boutiques and restaurants, what we now visit, those were owned by African Americans.
That's the land that the blacks own.
That they owned it. That a lot of them also would work for the very wealthy whites. That's why they were here. That they could get to them. They could walk to these as the housekeepers, domestic workers, as they chauffeurs. So they could walk to them, the laborers of this town. And then at night, they would work their own businesses. Rollins College, a lot of them also worked at the college, whether they were cooks, whatever labor or whatever means of jobs were available at that particular time.
And then also what you notice coming to Winter Park, and every time you notice the transportation.
Yes.
The railroad.
Yes, the tracks.
Yeah.
The dividing, that's the dividing. And of course, by the time Jim Crow comes around, what's that? You cannot be on the east side of the tracks at a certain, when the lights go off, when it's sundown, the town, you know, sundown laws. So those kinds of things, and a lot of people, you still have elements of Jim Crow here in the city of Winter Park.
Well, we talk about that. I mean, you haven't had a black city commissioner or a black elected official in over 100+ years since before the Reconstruction period.
Yeah, that's serious. And what makes that so relevant and so important is that it is a matter of geographical representation, the area, because if we were to have an African American in council during the height of gentrification, would it have happened as quickly as it did? Would it have taken place? So you have representation as far as ethnicity, representation as far as local or area control is also very important. So it's point of views. We need more point of views. And this at-large structure, as we all know, it keeps the powerful in position and it keeps the powerless very voiceless.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
And we know that just from a historical fact with at-large voting instead of single-member district. We know that. We know that. So take us to a little bit through the history here in Winter Park. Such a beautiful job you've done here.
Oh, wow. So the Heritage Center is a program of Crealde School of Art. Peter Schreier, who's the executive director.
We have a few of your pieces that
That's right. And I want to believe he's done some things with gas. So working in a lot of grassroots community, as he does, I always say that's his advocacy. And working in Winter Park, in the Hannibal Square community, he started to know that the history was not there. It was starting to disappear. So that is why the Heritage Center was created, was to let people know of the accomplishments and the contributions from the African Americans to this national, global destination that Winter Park has acclaimed itself as. So it had a lot to do with these people that you see in these photographs.
Like the Mr. Halls.
Like the Mr. Halls, like the Joyce and Carolyn Swains, like the Mr. Anderson. So what we're doing here is we highlight the everyday man and woman. A lot of these people, again, they were your chauffeurs. This guy here, Mr. Dowdell, Grant Dowdell, he was one of the Pullmans that worked at the train station. His family, the contemporary photos, this is the person or persons in this case that has brought the photo in. All of the interviews are done by Fairland Livingston, who's the chief historian that's born and raised in this community about 2 or 3 doors down.
And still here.
And she is still here with us. Mary Daniels, Phyllis Moore, Mr. Anderson. So a lot of these people have paved the way for us to be here right now. The timeline chronicles the local history.
1850.
Exactly. We were able to update it when President Barack Obama.
Before emancipation.
Exactly.
Remember, there were already blacks on the land, a lot of free blacks that already lived on the land before the Emancipation Proclamation, as well as in the state of Florida, we had the #1 lynchings. At one point in time here in the South. However, before then, during the enslavement period, because Florida was considered such a swamp, there wasn't many places that actually enslaved. Up near the Panhandle, you have some, towards some of the South plantation area around that time frame. But around here, no, there were a lot of free blacks that had got lost during trying to find the Underground Railroad, and the Indians would take them in. And they would begin to work. So you had a lot of free blacks here, and just like here, it proves it because you have it here in 1850.
Right. You'll see this photo here. This is one of the oldest photos in the Heritage Center. This is Missouri Ambrose and the Mount Moriah Missionary Baptist Church, which is still active. It was founded in the home, right on the corner. They met at her home, just like a lot of African American churches. It starts into your home. So out of Mount Moriah came about 4 or 5 other churches. So in this 3 to 5 mile radius, we have about 5 to 6 active churches as we speak. Good. Within the last 2 years, 2 of the bigger churches have been sold to developers. Oh no! Yeah, 2 of the churches.
And they're historic churches.
None of the churches are historic, and I think that is one of the issues or concerns, because they're not designated historic markers. Then these kinds of exchanges or these types of sales can happen, and then you will have it in the middle of the community, a home, an event center,
home.
A massive home.
That brings in a lot of traffic.
That's exactly right.
Commercial property.
That's correct.
That's commercial, but then those taxes go up around you.
That's correct.
With that.
So next to a single family home, then you have a mini mansion of some sort. Yeah. And once again, Miss Johnson, who's living next door, possibly on a fixed income. Imagine what her taxes, her property taxes
go up to because of that.
Yeah. So So one of the favorite things in the timeline I like to always point out is Professor Alzell Reddick. I know he was the first, according to the timeline, and this is 1971. He was hired at Rollins as an administrator, and of course, we know he later became one of our top representatives.
And still
is. So it's always wonderful to see him. You'll see pockets of where the population decreased, and that was because, of course, of the Great Migration, where a lot of people left from the South and they went up north.
Yeah.
The Hannibal Square Land Trust was founded in about 2005, and again, that was because of gentrification. You had families who wanted to stay in the area, but it became unaffordable. So the land trust was a way to provide affordable housing for families who wanted to live here. So many of them may not have their, how do I say this? They don't own the land, they own the home. And then once they're ready to maybe leave or sell, they sell it back to the land trust and afford another family the same opportunity.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Where did the name Hannibal Square come from?
Yes, so Hannibal Square.
And that's the cool thing. You all know about where your name comes from. We have no idea where the name comes. Even though we know it's after General Eaton.
Right. And so the name Hannibal, as we know, it came from the Carthaginian general that crossed the Alps, the Swiss Alps, and defeated Hannibal. That Hannibal is
the European Hannibal.
That is correct.
I'm thinking you're talking about some warrior, somebody named Hannibal Toodles.
That's where the name came from. Yeah, that's where the name came from. It's so funny. It's funny you mentioned that, because I had to have a family. They spelled it different as we spell it here. I think they spelled it with maybe 2 L's or something. But, they came thinking that there was a connection. Yeah.
That is not
They came thinking there was a connection. So it's always interesting. And over here again, the same thing. More images. And the permanent collection, isn't it gorgeous, Miss Lena? And the amazing thing, again, these are photos that came from people's private collection.
Yeah, people are proud of their history.
Extremely.
And the Winter Park residents, the Black community of Winter Park is proud of their history. Very proud. And they know their history.
They're connected to it. You'll see Wellborn Day Nursery. Wellborn Day Nursery, of course, started out of the necessity that women needed to go off to work and wanted a safe place for children to live. And it is still in existence about 90 years later. Yeah. Hi there. How are you? Come on in.
Now this is beautiful.
This is Barbara. Me? Miss Vivian, tell me your name.
And Louise Drake.
I remember. I knew your voice sounded familiar.
Yeah. So basically, I had an office up there, and I had a desk. It's an L-shaped desk. It's really nice. It's gray. And
We cannot
Look at her swimming.
use it. I wish we could.
do you know anyone starting a business?
Let me talk to Mary. Let me talk to Mary.
Here we have the Hannibal Elementary School.
Okay. Okay.
In 1930.
I'm still living in that house. But the base, I just hate to throw it away.
Wait, it's a good day.
It was Disney's credit union. So it's an L-shaped nest.
Okay.
And then it has two filing things.
Things. Okay. Do you have an image of it?
I can get one.
Okay. Okay. And that way I can poke around for you.
Just if somebody needs an L-shaped desk,
Okay.
it has a thing that goes up with four
The
What, cabinets?
Shelves.
cabinets?
Well, that sounds very nice. I would
It's
definitely poke
it's
around.
very, they bought it today, I got a grand.
Okay.
But I just don't need it, and I.
We have
know
Mr.
it's
Richard
just
Hall
some
here.
Business, they need it for their home.
Okay. Well, I can
Oh, this is the making.
I can definitely poke around.
They like to
Wow.
upgrade their.
Very
I
cool.
know. You never know.
Very
Oh, this is, I gotta come and do a tour.
Please, please
I will.
do.
I will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, good to see you.
All right. Now, when we look at more of Hannibal Square,
Uh-huh.
we look at the families.
Yes.
What's the future of Hannibal Square?
Oh, Pasha, that is a good question. I'm serious. That is a very good question, and I think that is going to be a matter of leadership in our political structure and how they see Hannibal Square. A lot of times, you know, the powers that be or whomever, they will use the word, we want to keep the charm and we want to keep the character. And what does that mean to someone who feels that their voice is not being heard? What does that really, really mean? So the future of Hannibal Square, I tell you, as we're in COVID, during the protests, I honestly can't answer that. I wish I could, but until we see more of a robust type of government, that everyone feels like they have someone representing them that can speak to their future, I think that's when we can start navigating that conversation.
So we're looking for progress.
Yeah, simply.
Progress. Like the
Is that too
people
much?
that represent these photos.
Exactly. I want to talk about this though. This is our audio station. And the audio station was created for those who are visually impaired. So everyone can come to the Heritage Center and have the same type of experience.
That's
There
awesome.
is Braille here. So these buttons, each one, when you press it, you hear the stories. You will be able to feel the stories, very descriptive. Each button represents a different story that's right here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hearing about Miss Livingston.
Exactly. And this is Miss Livingston right here, our chief historian, born and raised
Oh,
in the community.
I love that picture.
Yep.
So beautiful.
Yep.
Beautiful. Does the chair here have any significance?
So the chair here, of course, one of the things we do here, every 3 to 4 months, we bring in or we rotate exhibitions. This was done by O.L. Samuels, who is a folk artist. He is a self-taught wood carver.
Wow.
And so he left this behind. We do believe it may have been a chair that you sat in to milk the cow, but we make that up so we can have a story to tell folks.
I love it. Now, you not only get the history of Winter Park when you come here,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
also you have new exhibitions, and we're going to see one right now.
You are going to see one right now. Can we go down the hallway just really quick? Because this is important. So this is the contemporary work of Peter Schreier, who is a documentary photographer. The difference between the permanent gallery and these photos, these are environmental photos that were taken by Peter Schreier, who's the executive director, founder of the Heritage Center, documentary photographer. Again, they're all interviews done by our chief historian, Fairland. And these photos, these are people, elders, who we felt that they had a lot of stories still within
The
them.
oral histories.
The oral histories. And so each person is photographed, whether it's at their home. This is at the farmer's market because he was a farmer. He had, exactly.
And you still had quite a bit of agricultural land here that the blacks farmed on.
That's
Most
exactly
people
right.
do not know that about Winter Park.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Exactly.
it was an agricultural community as well.
Yes, very much, very much. Yeah, David Lee Walton Jr., who was one of the first firemen. Yeah. Lucille Cambrick, you'll see her standing in front of Wellborn. And Wellborn, again, like I said, has been in the community for about 91, 92 years.
Yes, the daycare.
Yeah.
Looks like more than a daycare, the school.
Yes, exactly.
They educate.
Yeah. We are ADA accessible for those who are unable to take the stairs. We have an outdoor lift that takes them to the second floor where we're going right now to see the exhibition.
Michelle, you can head up and get some of the stuff on the walls as well. Because they've been documented quite a few times.
Yeah. This is
this is the exhibition right
that's
here.
the exhibition, yeah.
Very nice.
I'm gonna close the door.
It's hard to do. We'll walk up the stairs. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, that's nice.
This image, this painting rather, that is Ruby Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And she did that for the opening. It's a community picnic. She's a folk artist. I want to think she is in Plant City. And people started, she had a fruit stand, but people started buying her signs. That's a nice problem to have. And then, of course, from there.
Beaversville, yes. It's one of our museum partners.
Yeah.
I went there a few years back. Wow,
That
this
is
is so beautiful.
I know. That's Linda Shatner. And that's the hands of Richard Hall, of course.
Oh, nice. All of the Tuskegee Airmen, I love that.
Mm-hmm. And this is the second floor. This is Jane Turner, The Evolution of an Artist. Jane is a self-taught artist. She's taken some classes with Crealde and at different art centers. She has traveled the world.
Oh, that's just so happy. Makes you feel welcome. That's right. It does make you feel welcome. The Queen.
I want to believe that's Batik. This is one of my favorites, of course. The Ailey dancer.
Oh, and that's how they look in person.
Yes, the hands.
Really
Yeah.
That is hard to do.
Yeah. The whole leg, everything. Standing
I don't
on the
think
toes.
the phone is going to give you all justice.
Mm-mm.
Or the photos and the sculptures. It's so beautifully hung as well with the framing.
Yes. Barbara Tiffany is the curator of the show. Of course, as a curator, her selection process of what will fit our space. Also up here is this is our meeting space as well for certain classes. A lot of small groups who are just forming nonprofits. This is how we create partnerships. A lot of them do not have space, so we let them, of course now with COVID, we have not been doing too much of that.
But still to be in this space, it's just to be into the creativity.
Yeah.
And be where everything happens. And have your history below you.
Yeah.
Have this type of creative juices flowing up here.
Yeah. And our connection to the community. It keeps our connection to the community very organic. This area is our featured family area.
Oh.
Each year for the Martin Luther King Festival, we would select a family and do their genealogy. So this is what you're seeing here. These are the offsprings of Walter B. Simpson and Frank Israel, the first two African Americans to serve, the first and only two African Americans to serve. These two pieces, beautiful pieces.
On the city council.
On the city council. Yeah, so these are the offsprings. These are his family. These two pieces was done by an artist. What's his name? John Mascow. These are just exquisite. Exquisite. We had his exhibition here, and these two pieces remained with us. We have hosted Julian Bond. We have a great relationship with
Miss
Rollins.
Francis loves him.
Yes, Rollins brought him in for a speaking engagement in 2011.
I thought we was gonna have a funeral for
I
Mr.
know.
Bond when he passed at the museum.
Yeah, and he did a walkthrough with us. He did a walkthrough.
Yeah.
He came through. Yeah.
Mr. Henderson.
And here is Mr. Gus Henderson, editor, community leader. And we've kept in touch with his great-grandson, I believe.
Really?
Lives in Jacksonville. We're still in touch with him. Still in Florida. Lives in Jacksonville.
Interesting.
Yeah. And this is one of the nicest feature about the Heritage Center. Is the outdoor porch. Of course, prior to COVID, this is where we hosted a lot of events, music, people. Whenever there's a new exhibition, there's always a reception of food,
And across the
libations.
street is your Heritage Center.
Yeah.
Community Center. Yeah. And then you have your park. What's the park name?
The park is Shady Park for the obvious reasons, of course. And you can see what was the business district from here, straight through all those great
But those
restaurants.
were used to be all black-owned
All
businesses.
black-owned businesses. Right now, we only have one. It is the barbershop. It's Weston Kennedy Barbershop. And Reggie has been there now maybe 4 or 5 years.
None of the original barbershops?
Not of the original.
Yeah, I
Not
saw
of-
that in on the stands below.
Yeah.
But I thought maybe somebody had took it over.
Yeah, not the original. That's Weston Kennedy. So yeah, this is us. This is us. I'm so glad you guys came by.
Always a pleasure.
Always.
And when is Hannibal Square Heritage Center open?
We are
Or by
open
appointment only?
currently now due to COVID, preferably appointments only. As you can see, I came over today. We have a few guests that walk in. So once everyone is wearing their mask, using proper social distancing, I will not allow a group of like 15 or 20 to come in at the same time.
Yeah.
We have had openings, and what we do is we line up people up downstairs. We let about 5 people downstairs, 5 people up, and then when they are finished looking at the exhibit, they go through the back door.
Got it.
We have a back door or the lift. They can go down the lift, and then the next 5 comes up. So we're taking all precautions around COVID-19, so everybody stays well.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
We appreciate the work that you do
Yes.
as well, but keeping the history alive here in Winter Park, because not a lot of people knew about the history of Winter Park. They see it as it is today.
I agree. And so, there's still a lot more work that gets to be done. And I think it's time to get on the right side of history. It is time to get on the right side of history.
Say it one more time.
It is time to get on the right side of history in this city of Winter Park. If you're going to be the best, if you're going to be the #1 destination, you got to do the right thing. You must do the right thing.
Always be on the right side of history.
Yeah.
Especially during these times, because everything is on social media.
Everything.
And nothing is ever erased.
That's history. It's called history.
You always want to be on the right side of history.
That is
All
correct.
right. So thank y'all for joining us today, and thank you to our friends and our partners here in Hannibal Square and Miss Barbara Chandler.
Thank you, Pasha. Thank you, Shay.